They're not all new to Gencon, but these are the 14 games I'm most excited for. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and these are the top 10 games for Gencon that I'm most excited for, some title along those lines. I'll figure that part out later. I already did one of these a week or so ago, covering the games that I've already played that I think you should in some way be trying to demo or pick up, or just in some way being familiarizing yourself with those games to see if they're fit for you or not. This one, on the other hand, this list are the ones that I'm personally most excited for, games that I primarily, with one exception, have not played, and even that one exception I technically haven't played, which is why it's on this list. Now, I call this a top 10, and I also said this 14. That's standard. In the process of going through this, in the process of making this list, some of the things I was more excited for, as I researched them a bit more, as I looked into them a bit more, some of them fell down a bit, but I decided to include them anyway, and so we have the final 14, some of which have already fallen a bit in terms of my excitement level, but we'll go into that soon enough. Timestamps to everything down below, and let's start off with Catan, Dawn of Humankind. These first four are the ones that technically didn't make the cut, but they're still in this video. Catan, Dawn of Humankind from Asmodee. Catan, Dawn of Humankind is the newest version of Catan, the newest one in the Catan series, although I say newest because apparently it's a reboot of Catan Settlers of the Stone Age, which is a much older game that is not that greatly rated. It's okay rated, and this is a re-implementation of that game, which is where my excitement already started to drop. This is not a new Catan. This is a redone version of a not greatly rated Catan, which lowered my interest level to a degree. Combine that with looking into the game itself, looking into how it plays, and it is a version of Catan that I still do want to try, but a version that I am certainly less interested in now than before I started looking into it. This one has you starting off as Settlers of the Stone Age, and you're going to be spreading across the world. You're not going to have different degrees of settlements and cities, but you will have a degree of exploration and a degree of decreasing resources as spots around the board slowly dry up. You'll have the robber, but the robber can't make its way to Africa, so the first few turns of the game, you're protected from that, similar to any house rules you've ever seen of you can't use the robber until somebody has 3 points or things like that. They have that built into the engine. The production value looks like it's going to be amazing as far as the types of huts production, the various components you have for the game, and it looks like it has various research tracks as far as how you can level up and get some form of abilities. So it's Catan adjacent, which are, I mean, I always enjoyed Catan, and I still like Catan to this day, and it's still a system that I've always enjoyed playing with. I am less optimistic that this is one that I actually pick up for myself, on the other hand, because we have Catan Rise of the Incas over here. Down here, I'm more intrigued by Catan Rise of the Incas right now, and I still have to play a Game of Thrones Catan. That's something that we still owe a gameplay to a whole bunch of people over on Quackalope. But for right now, Catan, Dawn of Humankind is one that I was a bit more excited about until I dove a bit further into this one. From there, we have the next one that did not make the cut. This one because it's more of a kid's game. Not because I'm not excited, but because it is more of a kid or family-focused game, which means I am excited for it, but I'm excited for it on behalf of my family, not my personal level of I can't wait to play this game. This is Maple Valley from KTBG Games, the follow-up to Creature Comforts, giving you a degree of overlap with the gameplay. You're still going to have worker placement, sort of, although this time it's more worker movement. You're going to have these regions around the board as you explore outside the region of Creature Comforts or Maple Valley, whatever it is, you start exploring around the board, trying to pick up, does not look like we have much on this page, unfortunately. I thought I had more pictures here, but as you try to go to various locations, picking up things along the way, as you try to cash in things that you'll make, similar to how in Creature Comforts you have these, comforts, I guess, I can't remember what they're called again, but the things you're crafting as you go through the game, you'll have that here as well. And you'll have certain like festival cards at the top of the board where you'll be scoring off points or earning various check marks as you go through it, as you build out these things, and you'll have that as well. So it very much builds into the core gameplay idea of Creature Comforts while being its own beast. This is coming from KTBG to Kickstarter this fall. Should be a copy in some way, shape, or form at Gen Con, and it's one that, at least on behalf of my kids, and my daughter in particular, I'm very excited to try this one out. We then have Terracotta Army. This one's only so low on the list because I find, practically speaking, it is very hard for me to get a good sense or feel about the mechanics of a Eurogame by just seeing it. This one from Adam Kopinski. Designers are, I can't pronounce those names, I'm sorry, but I know it's Adam Kopinski and someone else's name I can't pronounce. And I'm very excited to see what this one is. Another T-series from Board and Dice Games. A whole lot of elements going on. We got worker placement, then we got all the Euro elements. I'm excited because these games generally are good. I'm excited because I definitely want to try this one out in some way, shape, and form. As its own little sideboard, as you build up the army, you're going to be all slowly excavating the army, but only one person emerges victorious in the game. I'm excited with the healthy caveat that I don't know enough about the actual gameplay mechanisms and I don't have a feel for how it actually plays to be anything but peripherally excited. I want to play the game, I want to try the game, I hope to see and enjoy the game at some point in the future, but right now I'm just hoping it's a really good game, but without actually being able to dig my own figures into it, at least not yet. And then number 4 is one that I am excited for despite myself. This is going to be Clank Catacombs from Direwolf Games. Clank Catacombs is going to be the newest version of the Clank universe, bringing you the core gameplay loop of Clank, but with a modular board. Now, I always enjoyed Clank, but never loved Clank, and I'm curious whether this is enough to push me over the edge. I do like modular boards. I do like the sense of exploration. I watched the Dice Towers playthrough of this game, of trying to see how it's different than regular Clank, and it feels mostly like it's the same thing as Clank, which, for better or for worse, again, it's a game I never loved, but it's a game I always enjoyed, and so I'm curious. I'm curious to see whether this one is one that I go for. It's certainly one that I'm interested in trying out. I just think I'm trying it out against my better judgment, which is why it's one of the ones that didn't fully make the cut into the top 10, while still being very much present on this list over here. From there, we move into the top 10, the actual top 10 of the games that I am most excited about to see in some way, shape, or form at Gen Con, and to some way get my hands on them, try them at different points. All of these next 10, I'm pretty sure all of these next 10, are ones that I definitely want to try as opposed to peripherally wanting to try. Starting off with the first one, which is Skymines. Skymines from Alexander Pfister and Victor Kobelke. This is the re-implementation of Mombasa, not just taking, it's going to be a thematic re-implementation as well as some degree of changes to mechanics as well. Mombasa from Alexander Pfister, a game that generally well rated. I think it's the Board Game Geek Top 100 or just outside if I'm not mistaken. It is a well rated, well liked game. It does have a theme that they wanted to redo as well as make changes or tweaks to the game, and they did so with this Skymines, you know, to take charge of a corporation, earn as many crypto bucks as possible, which did result in a thread on Board Game Geek of people who think that the re-theme is as tasteless or almost as tasteless as the original theme. That's a different conversation, which you can have over on Board Game Geek, I guess. But over here we have Skymines. Skymines is one, or Mombasa specifically, is one that I never had a chance to try, but was always interested in trying, and Skymines is an opportunity for me to dive into this one. This is, again, another one of those heavy Euros that had a degree of a card programming as you play out your cards, as you try to take control of various areas of the board, as you try to gather resources, a whole bunch of things going on. I remember a long time ago I read the rules to Mombasa, never actually played it, and Skymines I'm hoping is my opportunity to dive into this world. From there we have my number 9, which is Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance. This is the one game on the list that I technically have played, because I've played Marvel Zombies. I have not played Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, though, which is the, I guess, the Spin Master Walmart version of Marvel Zombies that they'll have in some way, shape, and form. Over here, if we zoom in over here, you can see, you can get a feel for what you have going on over here. You're going to have miniatures for the various heroes in some way. You're going to have standees for all the zombies, and it's a smaller, more accessible version of Marvel Zombies, which is a good thing, I think, and I want to try it just for the sake of being able to try this one to see if it's I want to try this game. I want to see what it is. I want to see if it in some way captures what Zombicide or what Marvel Zombies brings to the table while dumbing down the cost and the production and all those things. I'm curious on whether the compromises are only on production or also on the game by the very nature of what the game itself is. I'm curious about that. I want to see, because this is going to be a lot of people's first entry into a Zombicide game, and I hope they do it justice. I don't care if they have to dial down the production value. If it makes it more accessible, I get that. I really hope they don't dial down what the gameplay experience of a Marvel Zombies is, because I really enjoyed the game, and if it's going to be in Walmart, if it's going to be an accessible price point, if it's going to be a game that a lot of people can get their hands on, I really hope they do it justice, because I just hope they do it justice. From there we have Plaid Hat Games. This is not a new one. This is one that's been available for a short time now, but Familiar Tales from Plaid Hat Games is one that I've been wanting to try since I first heard out about this one. This is one that's leaning into Plaid Hat's, open book narrative games, anything from Stuffed Fables all the way to Forbidden Waters, I want to say, is the most recent one. And this one seems to be leaning very heavily into the Forbidden Waters zone of a degree of adventuring, a degree of working together, different characters. It does play well at lower player counts, contrasted with Forbidden Waters. I believe Forbidden Waters, you want higher player counts. I believe Familiar Tales plays well even at 2 players from what I've seen online, which makes it significantly more accessible, although it still is a campaign experience, which means it might be a game that's harder for me to dive into, even as it is more accessible. I haven't loved Stuffed Fables, but Stuffed Fables I think is on the lighter end as far as what the gameplay is bringing. I'm very curious to see this one out. In general, Plaid Hat Games has a phenomenal reputation as far as these games go, and these sheer characters and the cuteness of it all, and the growth and the character development and all these things, I'm very interested in Familiar Tales. I don't know if or when I'll get a chance to try it, but it's one that I do want to try. Forbidden Waters is one that I've been wanting to try for the longest time. With the player count that it seems to be best at, I kind of resigned myself to the fact that it's not one that is meant to hit the table with my game group. In any case, from there, we move to the next one, which is Nightfall. Nightfall from Red Raven Games. And this is an interesting one for Red Raven Games. It's going to be a 1 to 6 player asymmetric game that has solo play, but is really designed as an asymmetric game of two different factions versus each other. You have the Knights versus the Demons over here as far as the various factions. The Seer Knight, the Ice Knight, the Earth Knight. Then we have the Demons, the Bone Crusher, Dread Mistress, Soul Stealer. This is going to be a one versus an asymmetric game of different factions. And you're going to have, if we pull this back up over here, you're going to have a campaign mode as well. For campaign mode for 1 to 2 players. In this mode, you read stories while exploring the map of a haunted valley, drawing your path as you travel. In general, Red Raven Games, anything they produce generally has a huge following and generally does well. How well is always a question, but ever since, I don't know how far back, Above and Below, they've been knocking out hit after hit after hit. Above and Below, Near and Far, Now or Never, with Sleeping Gods. They've been knocking out so many hits as far as what they do, and this one seems very compelling as far as the general nature of the game, as far as what it's trying to bring to the table. Now or Never is one that I've had having a fantastic time with. I need to continue diving into that one, and Nightfall definitely has me interested. Next up, we have Evergreen from Horrible Guild Games. Evergreen, which is a game that I knew a whole lot more about the last time I looked into it, but it's been a while since I looked into it, so I'm just going by vague memory over here. You have this little puzzle of a game as you try to put down different things and grow them. It's an abstract tree-growing abstract strategy game for 1 to 4 players from the designer of Photosynthesis, but bringing you very different mechanics to your game. The production value looks insane. Horrible Guild in general has produced a bunch of games that I've really enjoyed, as well as games that I've been okay with at the same time. And this one, just production value alone and the visual appeal of this game has me very compelled. The idea of what's going on here as you build out your biomes over here, it looks great. Will it be a game for me? I have no idea. But a 1 to 4 player game, playtime 45 minutes makes it very accessible. More and more accessible games just are more likely to the table. Games like Terracotta Army are amazing, but they're fighting for other games that are longer experiences that are very heavy, and I find that I can knock out a dozen games of Evergreen over 2 or 3 games of Terracotta Army, which makes shorter, accessible games something that just hits the table more often in my house, as much as I do love the heavier games. They're just fighting with games like Food Chain Magnet and Coimbra, and I don't know, whatever else I have in my Anno 1800 or Brass or so many other heavier games. They're just fighting for limited time, and games like Evergreen are more likely to hit the table. From there, we have Brazil Imperial. Now, this is the worst one on the list in the sense that I know the least about it, and yet I'm incredibly compelled despite myself. This is going to be coming to you from Meeple BR. It's going to be published by, oh my gosh, Portal Games. Published by Portal Games, distributed by Portal Games. This is one that I know nothing about the actual gameplay. I have the mechanisms, card play, conflict, contracts, grid movement, hexagon grid, modular board. I know nothing about the game, but ever since I first saw this cover, ever since I first saw the board, something about this game compels me. Something about the game calls to me as far as a game that I think is the type of game that I would enjoy, going by nothing other than artwork and surface level decisions as far as just what things look like. I mean, look at that. Tell me how that doesn't look like a compelling game. It compels me. I don't know if it's great. I don't know if it's terrible. I know nothing about the game. All I know is since I first saw Brazil, what's it called again? When I first saw Brazil Imperial, I have been interested in the game and wanting to get my hands on this one. This is one I will have to play at some point in some way, shape, or form. I absolutely plan on getting it. For me, the question is just more of a when. Then we have Chronicles of Avel. Chronicles of Avel, which is a cooperative board game for the whole family, seeming to combine elements of Catacombs of Karak with Mage Knight, bringing you a slightly leveled up dungeon crawler, tower defense sort of family-friendly Mage Knight dungeon-esque game. There's a whole lot of terms being thrown at you, but those are the terms I've seen associated with Chronicles of Avel. A game which you're going to have your own individual characters. Let's see if we can pop this up over here. You have your own individual character boards with your equipment you'll be managing on your board, flipping it over to get better stats, managing your backpack where things have to actually fit in order to store them, as you wander around the board, exploring outwards, as things start heading towards the city, trying to knock down the walls, as the ancient guardian eventually wakes up, trying to take down the city, as the timer slowly ticks around, eventually populating more enemies on the board. This one seems to be very heavily in the middle of trying to give you the next level of Catacombs of Karak, a game my kids really enjoy, but this one more of a cooperative spin on it, giving you a cooperative trying to venture out and survive and deal with everything before they deal with you. Currently rated an 8.0 on Board Game Geek to back up all the opinions I already have of this one, or the interest level I already have of this one, and this is one where, even like I mentioned KDBG, I'm more interested for my kids. This is one that I am interested in for my kids, but it's a genre that I tend to enjoy and a genre I tend to like, and so if this helps level my kids up in this genre of board games that they're currently enjoying, then I'm all for it. A complete random I guess, side tangent over here is the fact that I've always said that one of the reasons I think people don't like board games is because we don't level them up along with their growth. When someone starts reading books, we give them better and harder books to read. When someone starts watching movies, we give them more age-appropriate entertainment. But when someone plays board games, we just give them to a certain point, they eventually get to Monopoly, and then they never really level up past that, and so they grow up thinking they don't like board games, when what really happened is they hit a point where we should have leveled them up, and we never really did. I think Chronicles of Avel is a good opportunity to level my kids up from games like Catacombs of Croc, from games like Core Quest, although Core Quest is still fantastic, and then into something like this. So this is Chronicles of Avel, one that I'm definitely interested in. From there we have Turing Machine from Scorpion Mask. Turing Machine, which is one that I have no idea how this game plays. I've watched the YouTube video from Scorpion Mask and how it plays. I learned nothing about how it plays, but I did learn how clever it potentially is. In fact, this one very much reminds me of Pachamama from Sit Down Games in terms of the clever mechanisms they have at play. You have these code cards that will overlay with one another, that the way they combine all produces a unique code, and you're trying to go through a sequence of deduction to find out that code in this competitive deduction game. Not cooperative, competitive deduction game, as you try to figure out how to get to your code in the least number of steps possible. That's what I know. That's all I know. I don't know more than that. I don't know what that actually means. What do you mean with steps possible? How do you actually play that out? Is this more similar to the game I just said, which I forgot already? Is this more similar to Pachamama? Is it more similar to the science sequencing game that I can't remember, about trying to sequence out a disease from geez, I'm blanking on the name. Either way, from other companies, there's a bunch of deduction games out there that I have played that have all given me a different deduction puzzle. This is coming to you from Scorpion Mask, and the same people who did Decrypto, which is a phenomenal game. I'm very interested in Turing Machine. This is one I absolutely hope to get tabled while I'm at Gen Con. I'd love to play this one. There's a bunch of here that I'd love to try or see or play in some way, shape, or form, but Turing Machine is absolutely one of them. Party games that give you something to think about, they're more and more common nowadays. And while some of them just become another game that I don't mind trying or playing and don't stick around, there are those that have stuck around. There's obviously Codenames, which has done phenomenally well. There's So Clover, which has done phenomenally well. There's Decrypto. There's Just One. There's so many games that have managed to give you a unique puzzle that captures your attention while being gateway friendly and yet gamer involved, if that makes sense. And Turing Machine is one that I'm hoping hits that niche, although ultimately time will tell. Number 2 is going to be Cat in the Box from AEG. Not AEG, from Bezier Games. Not AEG at all. Cat in the Box from Bezier Games is a trick-taking game in which the colors of your cards are not defined until you play them. You'll have this hand of cards over here, which looks like just a bunch of numbers with no colors attached to it. And you'll notice in the background a color board, because it's absolutely true, you do have a color board, because you could try to define the colors of the cards as you go through things. It has an interesting mechanism in the gameplay as you try to play cards while predicting or saying what a card will be as you play the card. So you have that 4 in your hand, but as you play it, you kind of resolve what it is. And you still have to follow tricks, so at any point you can say, hey, I'm out of blue. But that means the cards left in your hand are not blue, which leads to these things called paradoxes, where you might have to have a card in your hand that has to be something that you've now said you aren't. Cat in the Box seems to follow this weird Schrodinger's cat philosophy of you don't really know what it is until you open the box, and sure enough, this is a trick-taking game where you have no idea how things are defined until it's, well, too late and you have a paradox in your hands. The concept seems intriguing. The game is rated well. I've really been enjoying certain trick-taking games recently. Certain trick-taking games, not all of them, but Cat in the Box is one that I'm absolutely intrigued by, very much want to try out, and hope is a fit for me. It sounds compelling. It sounds similar to the way I really enjoyed Ghosts of Christmas and the trick-taking puzzle that one provided. I think Cat in the Box is another trick-taking game that manages to have a very unique mechanism attached to the game that hopefully results in an experience that I really enjoy. And that brings me to our last title over here, one that I already know I'll be playing at Gen Con, which is Hoplomachus Victorum. Hoplomachus Victorum is a game that I will be playing at Gen Con. This is one that will be available over there, and while I've played the original Hoplomachus, similar to, I guess, Marvel Zombies, I played the original Hoplomachus, but I have not played Hoplomachus Victorum, which is effectively the redone version of Hoplomachus, although technically it's Hoplomachus Remastered, which is the redone version of Hoplomachus. Hoplomachus Victorum takes the same core gameplay concept of Hoplomachus, and then attaches a larger campaign and a bunch of changes around the game. This one did a massive Kickstarter, raising over close to $1 million on Kickstarter a while ago, and this is one that I'm very interested in because anything Chip Theory Games has made, I have liked. That's not true. anything that's a big box that Chip Theory Games has made, I have liked. I haven't liked their Trip Block game that they had, but their larger box games I've really enjoyed, and I think Hoplomachus is no exception. To me, the question, as always with their games, isn't whether I'll like this one or not. The question is, will I like it enough that it's fighting for table time along with all their other games, along with Too Many Bones, along with Cloudspire, along with Burn Cycle? Is this going to be fighting for table space with those games and losing, or will this be enough? Will this be different enough, or good enough, or in some way worthwhile enough that I dive into this one? The campaign is a pro and a con. It gives me a reason to dive back into it, but also gives me a commitment to dive back into it. It could be that it's enough to push me in one direction or the other, but the art, the production, they completely redid Hoplomachus. Their approach when they had this Kickstarter was they said, we have this line, this game, these games that we had a while ago, this whole Hoplomachus thing, we can either abandon it and move on to the next thing, or we can completely remaster it and bring it back to the table in a completely different form, both with the remastered edition and with Victorum, and this is what we have over here. I'm excited. I'm intrigued. I'll be playing this one at Gen Con. I'm definitely excited to this one. I'm definitely excited to see what this one lives up. But, I mean, it's Chip Theory Games. Like I said already, the only question is how much I like it, not really whether I like it. One day I'll play at Chip Theory Games that I really don't like, and that whole certainty around it will disappear. But today is not that day. It's based on a system I already know I like. It's based on a system. Similar with when they eventually come out with Elder Scrolls. Same idea. That's kind of surface level based on Too Many Bones. If it continues to be based on systems I like, I'll like their games. One day Chip Theory Games will make a big box game that's not for me. That's likely, just statistically. It might take 5-6 years, who knows, or it might be tomorrow. I don't really know, but we'll find out. In any case though, for right now, that's Hoplomachus Victorum, and that's the last of my 14 games that I am very excited to see at Gen Con. Experience, get my hands on in some way, shape, or form. I don't expect to try all of these. I expect to see some of them, try others, get a bit more of a taste or feel for some. Ultimately, we'll see. But if you're looking for a list of games at Gen Con, I'll throw a link down below to Board Game Geek's list. They have a full list of like 480 games or something like that right now, and these are the 14 I picked out as the ones that are most compelling to me from the ones I have not played yet. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I hope you have a good one.